Thought you were just getting out.
Yeah. Fire it up so I can get out of here. I'd like to call this meeting to order and acknowledge that as the City of Winkler, we are situated on Treaty 1 land, the home of the Anishinaabe, the Cree, the Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that have been made on these territories. We acknowledge that harms and mistakes have been made in the past. We dedicate ourselves to a future based on respect of all peoples, including Indigenous communities, in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration, moving forward to a harmonious and prosperous future together. That noted, I will take a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Marvin?
Andrew got it, Marvin got the second. Anything in addition to add? Not seeing anything. All in favor? That is carried. We have a number of people here this evening, which is kind of nice. We're usually sitting by ourselves in this room. We have a few items on the agenda. You'll see the agenda here. The delegation that will present towards the end of the meeting. So we'll just flow through it now, and when we get to that place, we'll acknowledge you and start from there. Excellent. Moving forward then, be it resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council of November 29th, 2022 be adopted. Mover?
Don Fair.
Second.
Peter Fraze.
Any comments out of those minutes?
Need to take my name off, please.
Will do.
Okay, thank
Don
you.
tried to participate virtually, but only got a little bit of it.
Didn't get it.
Okay, that small change noted. All in favor? Carried. We have a letter from the Manitoba Good Roads Association telling us that we have won an award and asking us to be in attendance to accept that award. I guess the first question I would ask is, what did we win the award for? It says Urban Beautification Competition.
Yeah, this came as a little bit of a surprise to us as well because we didn't know we had entered. So,
Lottery tickets.
yeah, it is for beautification, and we're just, I've sent this through to staff to review, and then we'll determine who will go to the meeting and accept the award. But there's different classifications. Ours here was for, I believe it was population 7,500 and up for urban beautification. So shout out obviously to the Winkler Horticultural Society for
Absolutely.
the great work they do.
Nice. And we have a bit of time to determine who's going to go.
Yep.
Because the dinner isn't until April 3rd. After that, you will also see Genesis House 38th Annual Report. Trust that everyone's had an opportunity to read through that. Any comments or questions? Those are our two pieces of correspondence. We will move forward then into our finances. Be it resolved that accounts payable in the amount of $1,364,960.85 as approved by the Finance Committee be approved for payment. Mover?
Andrew?
Second.
On Friesen?
The check register is attached as always. Does anybody have any questions on what you see?
No, sir.
All in favor? And that is carried. We also have a tax resolution. There are a number of whereases there. I will lead that to the be it resolved that the designated year for which properties in arrears be offered for sale by auction be 2022, meaning all properties with outstanding taxes from the year 2021 or prior. And be it further resolved that in accordance with Section 363(1) of the Municipal Act, costs shall be the actual costs incurred by the municipality for each parcel listed for the tax sale, plus an administration fee of $50 per roll as set forth in Manitoba Regulation 5097. Be it further resolved that the tax sale be held November 6th, 2023 at 5 p.m. at the Winkler City Council chambers. Mover.
Andrew?
Second.
Marvin?
Jody, this is basically just in preparation that if we are in that place at that time.
Correct.
So today, there's no further action needed. This just establishes the protocol.
That's right. And that's
Excellent.
something the assessment branch sends through every year, and we're required to make a resolution for that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Can't remember that we've ever gone that far.
We have been very, very close
Close, but not-
twice,
yeah.
but I don't think we've had one in
Right.
the recent
So
past.
that's great.
Yes, it is. All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the Winkler Fire Department report for November 2022 be received for information. Mover?
Don Fair.
Second.
Michael?
The report is attached. Anything that we need to note in particular?
Well, just that our numbers are climbing to record levels right now.
Yes, they are.
So 2011 was the record for the number of calls. I think there was Richard Itzel saying there was 200 calls?
Well, yeah, we're over 200 already. We're 2 calls shy of
Two-
that one.
Of the 2011 record.
Wow.
So it's just a lot more calls than what there has been in the past, so.
And that's part of the reason that he's expanding by a few more members.
Right. There are some members retiring, so you gotta look for the future and hire new recruits.
Okay. Not seeing anything further. All in favor? And that is carried. Continuing then to be it resolved that the Winkler Fire Department Fire Committee minutes for the December 7th, 2022 meeting be adopted. Mover.
Don Fair?
Second.
Michael?
Anything additional to note there, guys?
No, everything's running smoothly, and the recruits are going into their training. So very happy with the response of recruits that came forward.
Nice.
So, yeah, we're looking forward to having a good amount of firefighters again.
Good. It was good to hear the chief state that there was quite a few people trying out, that we had a significant competition. So we did get a good group moving forward.
Right. Yep.
Very nice. All those in favor? And those are carried. Be it resolved that the 2023 emergency plan changes for the Southern Emergency Response Committee be adopted. Mover?
Peter?
Second?
Marvin?
And what we see there is their summary, we see their budget, we see their volunteer list. Any questions on what you have in front of you? Okay. All those in favor? And that is carried. One of the responsibilities that we have as a new council is to appoint or reappoint members to the Winkler Police Board. On that note, the police board has had a preliminary meeting. We've had some discussion in terms of people who are sitting there today who we would like to continue to sit there, and new members who are needed as people hit their term limits. So on that end, be it resolved that John Neufeld be appointed to the Winkler Police Board for a 1-year term ending December 31st, 23. Be it further resolved that Andrew Fraze, Merlin Hepner, and Jody Penner be appointed to the Winkler Police Board for a 4-year term ending October 28th, 2026. Be it further resolved that Andrew Fraze be appointed the chair and Jody Penner be appointed the vice chair for said terms. Mover.
Don Fair?
Second.
Michael?
And again, in explanation for John's term being only 1 year, we wanted some additional continuity as we brought new members on. And Andrew and Jody, I appreciate both of you agreeing to serve in those positions. It is a board that at times has some heavy lifting as we're trying to figure out where things are. It's been really good to see good stability for the last several years in that regard, and I thank you both for your service there. Other thoughts or comments?
refresh my memory, how many community at large members on that board? Or
We
does
ha-
it vary?
It's, we have one provincial appointee and up to 5
Okay.
appointments that we can make, of which no more than 3, Jody, or no more than 2?
No more than 50% can be council or city employees.
So
Okay.
no more than half can be. And at this point in time, we don't have half, we have 2.
That's right. Our bylaw states 5 members, so,
Okay.
so those are 4 appointees of council and 1 provincial appointee.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Nothing further? All in favor? And that is carried. That takes us to the Bergen rezoning, bylaw 2292-23. Be it resolved that this bylaw, 2292-23, be given first reading. Mover?
Don Friesen?
Second?
Don Fair?
Okay. As always, the first reading puts it on the table so that we can get to the hearing. Anything further at this point? No. All in favor?
Get it on the floor?
And it's on the floor. And, David, we have zoomed through this. We are at our delegation. You've requested to present to council. If you would come to the podium. Our bylaws state typically that presentations get 10 minutes. Quite often, that stretches to 15. So if you need a few more moments, by all means, feel free to do so. We do have opportunity if others, thank you. We do have opportunities if others would like to comment afterwards. Typically, we leave that right at the end for questions from media or public. But as you can look at our agenda, if Jody slides it down just a little bit, you are the last item on the agenda today, so if anybody else is here also to speak to it after David is done, you are free to do so with the same rules. We'd ask you to come to the podium, state your name and address, and then share what you have. On that note, I'll turn it over to you, David.
Hello, hello, public servants and ladies and gentlemen of the public. My name is David Wall. My address is 405 Red Oak Trail, Winkler, Manitoba, R6W0C4. And I appreciate the time and opportunity that you have afforded me to speak with you about addressing issues regarding governance, as well as to express community concerns regarding the sexually explicit materials available to our children and our youth in the South Central Regional Libraries. This is a formal presentation being presented to you, the City Council of Winkler, and thus I respectfully request the content be properly reflected in the meeting minutes. I will provide you've been provided with a copy of the communication for action, which is in the back of that handout that you've been given, the 2023 draft budget, as well as the same booklet that was given to the South Central Regional Library Board. All excerpts seen and heard here today are taken from juvenile books available through our local libraries. On September 22nd, Karen Banman came before the South Central Regional Library Board to represent a 6-person delegation. Karen Banman's presentation was not about a book complaint. 4 topics were presented: pornography, child abuse, grooming, and accountability, all in the context of the Criminal Code of Canada. I will now take a few minutes to share a condensed version of what was shared that evening. But before starting, allow me to note that although labeled by our libraries and media as sex education, the first 2 books that we will discuss that we will examine are in fact cataloged by their publishers as sex instruction. The difference: sex education focuses on basic anatomy and the biology of sex. These books, however, are instructing our children on how to commit various sexual acts. Please open your booklets, if you would, to the 2nd page and look at slides 3 to 6. These cartoon-style drawings are from 2 books, It's Perfectly Normal and Sex is a Funny Word. The images include people having intercourse, a nude boy with an erection, and a girl, breasts hanging down, examining her fully exposed anus and vagina with a mirror. Slide 5 shows a comic book style story of a girl masturbating and achieving climax in a tub. Slide 6, a collage of images of adult and child anuses, vaginas, bums, breasts, and penises. Now please turn the booklet 2 more pages to slide 12. examine the image on the bottom right-hand side of the page. If you're wondering which image, there's a large yellow arrow pointing to it. Remember that this is a book cataloged as sex instruction for children. Now please ask yourself, why expose a child to the image of a naked adult male in the kneeling position with his belly hanging over his exposed genitalia? Drawings may be less alarming to adults than photographs, perhaps of children masturbating or standing in the nude with an erection or close-up of their sexual organs. However, pornography is not defined only as photographs, but also as drawings or visual representations. Now, if you would, please turn with me to the first page of your booklet, and let's look at slide 1. Section 163 of the Criminal Code of Canada defines child pornography as a visual representation that shows a person who is under age of 18 and who is depicted as engaging in sexually explicit activity, or where the dominant characteristic is the depiction of a sexual organ or the anal region of a person under the age of 18. Turn one page and take a look at slides 3 and 6 again. Do none of the images in front of you fit the description of child pornography as stated in the Criminal Code? They do. Please turn with me to slide 9, and I will read an excerpt from the book, It's Perfectly Normal. When people masturbate, this is the quote, when people masturbate, they usually rub their sex organs with their hands or with something soft like a pillow. A girl often rubs her clitoris, a boy often rubs his penis. Please note the images include a boy and a girl engaged in the sexual act of masturbating on their beds. Now please turn to slide 11, as I quote, when a person puts his or her mouth on a female's vulva or on a male's penis, this is called oral sex. When a male's penis goes inside another person's anus, this is called anal sex. And what exactly could you imagine is the intention behind these statements? And I quote, when you were younger, you may have discouraged that it felt good to touch yourself. You may have discovered, rather, that it felt good to touch yourself. You may have done this even when you weren't alone. Even when you weren't alone? Perhaps you can see the concern. This does not normalize, or this normalizes children masturbating while another person is present in the room. Please turn back one page with me to slide 10. Section 152 of the Criminal Code, titled Invitation to Sexual Touching, states, every person who counsels or incites a person to touch with a part of the body or with an object, the body of any person under the age of 16 years, is guilty of an indictable offense. Is there enough information, enough instruction on these pages to counsel children to perform these acts of sexual touching? There is indeed. Please look at slide 13. The memoir, All Boys Aren't Blue, is the book that everyone seems to avoid discussing in public. This book marks a trend in the highly graphic and sexualized content written for teens. The narrator in the following conversation is a 10-year-old boy. Page 206 reads, you were much taller than me, probably by about a good foot. You told me to take off my pajama pants, which I did. You then took off your shorts, followed by your boxers. You stood there fully erect and said, taste it. At first I laughed and refused, but then you said, come on, Matt, taste it. This is what boys like us do when we like each other. I finally listened to you. The whole time I knew it was wrong, not because I was having sexual intercourse with a guy, but that you were my family. You can read with me on the same slide that Section 163 of the Criminal Code of Canada defines child pornography as any written material whose dominant characteristic is the depiction of sexual activity with a person under the age of 18, or the written depiction of underage individuals engaged in sexually explicit behavior. Section 152 of the Criminal Code clarifies that children of any age who commit a sexual act with another child under the age of 16 have committed a crime in Canada. Slides 13 and 14 contain 4 excerpts of this memoir, all which fit the description of written child pornography. Please allow me to draw your attention to one more aspect of this book. As an adult, the author, George Matthew Johnson, he's the Matt in the story, justifies and sometimes celebrates what happened to him as a child. He insinuates that these sex crimes perpetrated against him were his handbook. That's a quote. his crash course to learning sexuality as a queer boy. This message to our youth is deeply, deeply concerning. Consider for a moment what position the library board has put themselves in by having and distributing this material. Please turn to slide 15. The criminal code states this: every person who makes or distributes any child pornography is guilty of distribution. Over 100 members of the public signed their names as they entered the room to hear what the delegation had to say on September 22nd. When the back of the room was full to capacity, the public who could not enter remained in the hallway and the main entrance, and those under 18 stayed outside. After discussing the South Central Regional Library Board's decision to first provide no response to the delegation's primary request, to state that the delegation would not be permitted to make a presentation at November 17th's library board meeting, and without further discussion to close the issue, the offices of the Minister of Culture and Heritage, Volunteer Manitoba, and the Ministry of Municipal Relations have all directed that we come to you, our City Council. Today, nearly 1,000 people of the South Central Regional Library communities have signed a petition to put a policy in place to keep sexually explicit books for kids out of our libraries. The issue is clearly not closed. Over 1 million tax dollars are used each year to fund South Central Regional Libraries. You provide the initial $188,581.40 of funding of our city tax dollars, which is only later subsidized by other government monies. We, the public, who elected and trust you, the councilmen and women, councilmen, to represent us, you are the stewards of the taxes collected on our behalf. We expect fiscal responsibility, good management, and excellent integrity. So the question we are asking is, why would you, Winkler's City Council, continue to provide funding to the South Central Regional Library if they have been made aware of and have chosen to keep materials on the shelves that contain child pornography, teach sexual touching to minors, and open up our children to sexual grooming and illegal sexual activity, all of which violate the Criminal Code of Canada? You have one council member in this room who represents you on the South Central Regional Library Board. These library board members are appointed representatives that must speak on behalf of you, City of Winkler, as a whole, and on behalf of our community. If I've inspired one or two councilmen in this room, my suggestion is, at the very least, to pass a resolution to approach the library board to ascertain a policy wherein these children's books, and any children's books or of age 0 to 17 books that contain pornography, teach sexual touching, or could be used for grooming purposes are removed from all South Central Regional Libraries. And if the South Central Regional Library continues to engage in the illegal act of making pornography and sexually explicit materials available to minors, on behalf of the delegation and concerned community members, we, the public, insist that our tax funding be withheld. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Obviously, you're extremely passionate about this and should be. I think every one of us loves our kids and want what's right and want to figure out a way to do exactly that, to protect them. I thank you for the time and effort and energy that you have put into this. We will absolutely take some time to debate and look at this further. It is a lot of what you hear is in exactly that, is offensive to many of us. What exactly that is and whether or not it's pornography or not, I'm not the expert on it. You and your group have certainly done a fair amount of research. I would hope that you've also forwarded your concerns to the proper authorities, because pornography as such, it certainly shouldn't be there. I understand, and I read with interest, the Pembina Valley Online story after your Altona presentation, not you personally, but your group, that mentioned that you had been directed to the municipal councils. We've reached out to those government departments to understand exactly where that is. As a council, we're always told to put our noses in and keep our fingers out. So we need to ask questions and we need to dig into, but in terms of actual operational direction, we have very little authority in that regard. And the more we do along those lines, it is actually counterproductive. The lever that we have, absolutely, is appointments and funding. The piece on that, prior to that, would, in my understanding earlier, was to allow the process to happen at the library level. For the group to make their appeal there, my understanding is that judgment had been made in terms of what happened, but I don't believe an appeal has come forward, at least last I heard. But we are certainly waiting to hear from the province in terms of why the direction was made to send that to the municipal councils. We have no problem, obviously, taking a look at that, but we just want to make sure we follow due process in that regard.
I'm gonna help David out on that one.
Please.
Okay, I'm Christine Ronsray.
Perfect.
Yes.
And address?
Yep, Somerset, Manitoba.
Perfect.
Awesome. First of all, I like seeing a council that actually knows their stuff, so that's really good. And I also like seeing a council that's actually doing some due diligence. So thank you very much for that. I also like seeing a public here at a public council meeting. There's two
Absolutely.
roles here. There's the council, and then there's public. So I really enjoyed seeing that. To speak to what you're asking, I've read the Municipal Act, and I've read the Public Libraries Act, and I've responded to the minister, well, not the minister's office. It's, you and I both know we can't talk to ministers.
Correct.
So I actually have a letter back from Trevor Surgenor. I hope I didn't butcher his last name. I'm so sorry. And it says, "Thank you for the opportunity to clarify. The Public Libraries Act defines the library board composition to include resident and council representatives. Library boards are the authority for the governance and the management of public libraries, and they are collectively responsible for ensuring equitable and universal access. The authority of the library board and its duties are delegated under the Public Libraries Act, municipal bylaws, and the agreement established between the municipalities." So I've heard tonight, and I'm sure you guys can understand it, you have bylaws written down for police, right? You have it for fire. What? Guess what? You can also do it for the library and for any content that comes into your municipality. You guys got elected, actually you stood, before election, you stood for the idea, for the promise that you were going to represent the public.
Correct.
If you don't represent the public, you might as well have just left it for provincial matters, right? We have local governance, and there's local governance for a reason. Your local governance can contain your ideas, your culture in your community with bylaws. You cannot break laws that are written by Canada, and you cannot break laws that are written by the province, but you can make your laws more robust. You can make them more safe for your community. And then you can make them with the community's culture and best interest in mind. So you actually have the power, and that's why the municipal relations, right? We're talking about two ministries, and that's where it gets really ugly, is that it starts flipping around in between two ministries. And we're going to get a third in here because education's going to be pretty ugly too. But that's not your department yet.
No.
So,
I don't think we want that department.
yeah, we don't want that department, believe me, because I know how ugly it is. You have power here, and it's directed from, this is from the Ministry of Sports, Culture, and Heritage, and that's where the Public Libraries Act lies under. Now, municipal relations is definitely yours, but because they intertwine, you do have the power. And not only can you guys make a bylaw for Winkler City, but you're not, like you've already alluded to, you already know, we've already talked to other municipalities. There's 7 involved in this library.
Correct.
And that means that there's 7 council men and women on that board. And if you as the culture in this area, like we represent a wonderfully large area. And those libraries actually have a wonderful effect. However, just like if it's not reused for the right purpose, it can cause damage, right? Scissors are meant to cut paper. If it's used in the wrong way, it could cause harm. Same thing here. We need some rules engaged to protect our young people. The libraries, I don't know if you know how that works, but there's the 5 libraries that are involved in this consortium. My son was the one who picked up It's Perfectly Normal out of the Miami library. The kids were sitting on the benches, the kids' benches, and he likes nonfiction. Some of the other kids like fiction. He reached off the shelf and I was able to grab it before he did. And for some reason, I don't know, I'm that type of person who doesn't really believe in coincidences, but I just so happened to take it off the shelf, or take it off of his hands and give him another one off the shelf. Thank you, God. Right? However, he's probably not the first boy who saw that, or girl. What does that lead to? Assuming you saw some of the pictures. They won't even print those pictures, right? We've seen this in the news. The newspapers can't print the pictures. Why not? They're safe for our kids, are they not? Why isn't the media showing it? Oh, I mean, I won't speak for the media, but I have a feeling I know why. Look at your pictures. I think you guys know why too. You have the chance to do something here. And I wish you would. I pray you would.
I appreciate your comments there. 2 quick things. Thank goodness for an involved mom. Good on your children to have that. Well done. And secondly, I'm wondering if you would mind grabbing Jody's email address and emailing him a copy of that letter?
Sure.
Just so that we could have that as well as part of our discussion afterwards?
Yes, for
I'd
sure.
certainly appreciate that.
Yes. I think you were kind of hinting at something there. It's been since the beginning of libraries that parents bring their kids to the libraries. Not private libraries, you'll have your own in your house, but public libraries, that you open up the doors and you let your kids run. They go and explore. They get to go and have the excitement of finding new books. That is the excitement for a mom to learn, and I'm speaking only because of mom, because that's what I am. And they go for an adventure, and you let them run free. You can't let them run free in this area, right? Who are we kidding? That's where we used to have block parents, right? Now we can't even trust our own libraries. Like, where are we going to here? We can set those bylaws in place and protect kids.
Thank you. Have you got anything
No,
further
I
to
just
add?
didn't know if you had any other questions for me. Or
And I would open it to council. Do we have any questions that you'd like to ask now? Okay. I'll open it then to anyone else. We're at the...
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Yeah,
David.
thank you.
We're at the questions from the media public section. I'll let the public go first. If anybody else has comments that they would like to add, please feel free to do so.
Sorry, I'm going to add one more thing. Sorry, I'm just that person.
Please.
So sorry. One more thing is that I would also suggest have some conversations with the other municipalities. You guys did in order for you guys to join originally, right? In order for the libraries you had to make a regional library, and you had to discuss all that funding. We have to remember who wags the dog. Is it the library that tells you what your funding is, or do you give the funding to the library? Have those conversations with those other municipalities. They have to, like I said, according to this letter, they have to obey the provincial laws. They have to fall under the Public Libraries Act. They have to follow under your bylaws and the agreements between those municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
very much. Not seeing anything further from anyone else. David, again, I want to thank you for bringing your concerns forward. There was a time when I sat on the other side and I had to present to council for something. It can be intimidating. It's not easy to do. But the passion and the consideration and the care that you had that asked you to step forward and do so, well done for doing that, and I thank you.
May I add one quick thing?
By all means, please.
And I ask this in part because I did go and pull the books off the shelves myself and look at the books. And the All Boys Aren't Blue is an audiobook, and so you have to listen to it, which I think is additionally insidious. But and I had to spend time with the Lord after reading and looking at some of these things and so forth. So I just came to ask, when are you planning to deliberate and make a decision?
We're certainly going to have a discussion here. We'll start that discussion tonight. I think the idea of talking to our fellow councillors in some of the other areas is fantastic. I don't know that you've presented to every council already. I believe 3 or 4, if I'm right.
More than,
Not everyone is as structured as you guys are. Some don't like the idea of delegation, but they're learning what public meetings are about and how public meetings work, and that they have the right to do that. There was another comment that I just clicked in that you had said earlier, so.
Please, if we can get you there.
Okay, yeah, thanks, David. So what David was hinting at there was we wanted to make sure that the delegation or the deliberation was in public, because this is not an in-camera issue. This is a public issue. So we just wanted to know when that public deliberation would be, so that
We have to do some additional research before
research
we
on
get
that.
to
Okay,
that.
sounds good.
Yes.
And then you had a concern about, and I'm sure that the library, I understand how the conversations work.
Mm-hmm.
So you were asking about why didn't we follow an appeals process? So,
Correct.
Okay. So appeals process for what?
For the decision that was made, I believe there was a request that went to them that asked for some specifics. The board at that time deemed one of the books, as already noted, to not be physically in the library. It was an e-book. One book was moved, and another book, according to the decision of the libraries, was that it was appropriately placed. That decision was rendered to the group with, again, my understanding, with a process if an appeal, if that group didn't agree with the decision, what the appeal process was. My understanding was that no appeal has ever been filed.
Okay. So so you understand what's happened thus far.
Okay.
There has been an a complaints process.
Right.
And as you would know, complaints processes have a procedure. So that doesn't involve the library board. That revolves around a patron taking books into the library, discussing it with management, which would get sent to the director. It doesn't get reviewed to the board yet. It gets sent down back to library.
Correct.
Library is a committee that is sought out by director, right? Now, those 3 books, that means that that patron, myself, and that was by myself. So I was that person who sent in complaints, and the complaint was then looked at by a committee. And so the appeals process is with that committee. I determined that that's fine, that's what the committee has decided. Asking for the same committee to review the same books with the same knowledge that I would put forward would achieve what? That's actually the definition of insanity, right? Having the same thing over and over again and you get the same results. I don't play games. Then there was a delegation that was struck to go to the library board, which actually was not a complaint, and that was made clear that night.
Okay.
It was not a complaint about books. It was asking the library to get rid of pornography off their shelves. Totally different issues. We used evidence from the books to say, please, library board.
Similar
take
to the
porn-"
evidence that you've presented.
Exactly. It's
Okay.
actually the same evidence,
Okay.
but different questions. So the first question to the committee was, committee, these 3 books are disliked. Please remove those books. You have the option to appeal.
Right.
That issue was done. Now we appeal to the library board, which was a delegation to the library board with a different group, right? It wasn't just me.
Okay.
In fact, it was Karen Banman, who appealed to a different group of people, which was the library board, used those books for evidence, but asked the library board a totally different question. They didn't say, get these 3 books off the shelf. That library board said, get pornography off the shelf, and here's the evidence.
Okay.
and it was three different, well, two of the books were the same, one of them was different. Now, we have gone to councils, and we're asking a third question, a totally different question, totally different groups, right? We're not actually a group, we're individuals. I'm actually quite, when you make a group, that's a totally different thing. These are individuals who have come up to council, individual public people who have come up to council and actually requested something individually. Yeah, the speech is all the same, the ideas are all the same, the funding is different, but the process is the same. So those groups, so those delegations have asked a different question. They said, okay, the library left the books on the shelves. They don't want to make a policy that gets pornography off the shelf. Why on earth are we funding that? Either we can make a bylaw to get rid of it, and try to convince them to stop doing it, or we just say we're not paying for that issue, right? So those are three different things. Now, when individuals at the library position, I guess, I don't know how to pronounce or to say that properly, I guess the director perhaps, may suggest doing an appeals process, I'm not sure why what person would do that. Appeal what? What would we say that's so different than what we said already?
I think
that would be on the
one of the
complaint level.
challenges that we have a little bit is, as you've already noted, we have a fairly strict structure in place, and in order for processes to go, we have to follow protocol and process. And if there is an appeal process that hasn't been exercised, one of the questions then that we're challenged with is how come?
Yeah.
And that's really ultimately what it comes down to. And you stated, and I think you have a really good explanation for that, it's multiple different groups in multiple different places. So that explains, to a large degree, that certainly explains that. But it does still, when a decision has been rendered at a place, it's important to follow that process to the end. And you're right, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result may not happen. But it is, in my view, important that we follow those steps to their logical end conclusion, which leaves us that opportunity to go
Right.
to the next place saying, we have exhausted every option.
Yes, and actually, soon as when, like, as you would know, appeals processes, that's an option for a person. That is not a necessity. A necessity would have been to follow a complaint, right? Just like it would be with every conversation through the ranks.
Absolutely.
That is, it's an option to go through, it's an option to not go through.
Right.
But that was not a necessity,
Correct.
so.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Again, thank you very much. If you've got a comment, please, I'd ask you to come to the podium and I'll get your name and address, please.
Brian Dick, 75 Durham Crescent, Winkler.
Thank you.
You said that you're going to have some discussions on this, and I wanted to mention that I have studied some law. I'm not a criminal lawyer, but if a criminal offense has occurred, our chief of police has to actually investigate that.
Correct.
And he's required by law to make a ruling on it, to see if a criminal act has actually been committed. And so I just wanted to pass that on to you. And the second point that I wanted to make is that how does pornography or someone who's addicted to pornography, how does that start? And do we want to start our kids at 2 and 3 years old to be addicted to pornography so we have a chance to do something? Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Please.
My name is Holger Theobald. I come from Berlin, Germany. I'm a local resident and investor. So after my friend David clued me in on what's happening here, I said, well, I go through the criminal code, section 163 and 1631, going through all of that, looking at the material, well, I see some resemblance. And let's see if there's really a violation. There are all those meetings, but why not go to police? So I went to the Morden police, and they seem to be completely clueless. I sent them an email, what it's about, with the evidence, and they said, where do you live? I said, outside of, in the RM of Stanley. So I should go to the RCMP. So RCMP in Morton. So I went to the RCMP of Morton, and they were understaffed. There's no officer here. I should call a number. And it took some time for me to convince if there's a criminal offense, should be investigated. Found out. Anyway, she gave me a number. So I called the number. I got a call back from a local RCMP officer, which didn't know about the thing, and I presented the evidence. He went through the evidence. He said he agrees 100%. I don't disclose the name here in the setting, but he kind of dampened my hopes. Probably won't happen much. We'll give it to the supervisor. They'll give me a call, say the Winkler police should be in charge because it's not an RCMP matter, so it's the Winkler police. So that's the third police station. So I went to the Winkler police, and gave my name and everything. Now I'm a known person here, but hopefully only for that reason, not for other things. So. They said, well, it's a matter of the city. Actually, they mentioned the mayor, so I should go to the mayor. And then, so I went to the mayor's office here, and left the note here with a lady, friendly ladies up front here on the side, and explained there's a situation with child pornography, which is at the local library here, and so forth, and what can be done about it. And so then I said, well, they'll pass it on, and I get a letter back. And then I did get a response. Good afternoon. I understand you asked about library books in City Hall. The library is not open Mondays, but you can reserve on the website or in person on other days. Marvin Platt counselor. So I can basically access child pornography from Tuesday to Friday. I hope you didn't mean this, but if I would do so, I'd commit offense according to section 163.1 of the criminal code. I understand this was a misunderstanding here. So, but what I see is a lack of pursuit of justice, and there's no bite or no. And this is what. There's a reason why I came to this region. We're a successful development family in Germany, and anyway, there was a reason to protect my children. My oldest daughter barely survived the terrorist attack, and.
I'm sorry.
So there was a reason we came here. We forsake everything. Not all her friends survived. We had several other people who we had to leave home, and we love this area so much. And now we're so disappointed that no one stands up. There's no. I just can't believe it. It's like this is a cultural shock to me. And coming from the city of Berlin, where the government, because of sex education, it's all documented, came out 30 years later because of a certain sex education. They thought it's good for children to facilitate, older people with little children. They facilitated foster children to known pedophiles, and not all victims survived. And after 30 years it came out, and then the time of prosecution was over. Some of the people were dead already, and they gave them handouts for $10,000, but not everyone survived. And so this is very sobering. And then right outside of Berlin, they have pedophile practice rooms already. So what they say with instructions is actually they have those rooms. You can actually see that and show a big vagina and male organ. And then they have people instruct kids to masturbate. So pedophiles can, instructors can go and help them and show them this. They take it to the physical. I mean, this is physical. And I was hoping, well, look at Winkler, we're 20 years behind. But please don't let us catch up, because this will bring judgment. I come from a place that got destroyed 2 times in war. I had family dying. Just yesterday, my 101-year-old lady, grand-aunt died. She survived all the mess and wars and everything. But we have a history, and I don't want to happen to this place. And we need to stand up and have we need to serve justice, and whatever it is, but we can't have justice on one side and for some, and then not for others, and this and that. And this policeman, he was honest, but he gave me no hope. He said, well, we prosecute those guys. So if let's say a pedophile would go and look at it and to get whatever erected or whatever, then it would be 100% a criminal offense. But then we do it for education. What are we doing? I mean, so we have to see that we have enough intercessors that things don't fall in the city. It's such a jewel It's such a jewel, and it's not about money. That's priceless. People can have millions and leave it all here just to come to this place. But I don't want to have this happen to here. I have a sad heart, and it's a subject to everything I have. And I even talked to my lawyer, said, I pay you, give you a train right now, an e-transfer right now, like in a minute. Just do something and find out whether, and help. And he backed out because he wants to still have a career. And I can't talk to, I'm like with all kind of lawyers here to do a development law, subdivision. They're not into this. And they want to also have a future career. Please help. This is my call. Please, and shout out loud, please do something what is in your power. Thank you. Lord bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one question.
Please, Don.
One question. I find this quite disturbing, this book. I just tried to research it a little bit, and I understand like the across the line there, this is quite an issue there also. Is that correct? And is there, and to me, if it is breaking the law, like why I just wonder why it hasn't been, like, how are they managed it in across the line? Because I came across it quite often when I did a little bit of research. So is there any is anything happening there?
Across the line?
Yeah.
Yeah, that I can't speak to. I've been very busy.
I'll ask you again to come to the microphone. And the reason why being is our meetings are recorded and broadcast, and they can't catch you if you're sitting in your
Wow,
seat.
you just made that more intimidating, didn't you?
Sorry, I mean, everything except your comments are broadcast.
I can't really speak to that because I do pay attention to across the line a little bit, right? Like you say, you've seen a little bit of it, but you don't get to see the outcomes as much.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to speak for, I'll speak for myself. I don't know how truthful the media is. I don't know how truthful, let's just say, I don't know how many levels of government aren't corrupt.
Yeah.
And I will not say that that they are, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the reasons. Another reason that we decided to go to make a complaints process, to go to the library board, to go to councils. What if we were right? What if you are funding pornography? What if you took on this role and you're funding pornography? You want to read the criminal code and see what happens? I would rather be on this side and be a Christian and let you know that you may be doing something wrong prior to you finding out the hard way. I don't know. I don't know what's happening in the States.
Yeah, I was
I'd like to
curious,
know if there would be police here that would follow up with that. We're not done.
yeah. That's good.
May I add to that?
Yes, please do.
I haven't done an amazing amount of research, but for instance, the book "All Boys Aren't Blue." In 2000, this is a quote. In 2022, "All Boys Aren't Blue" was listed among 52 books banned by the Alpine School District following implementation of Utah Law HB 374, quote unquote, sensitive materials in schools. 42% of which, and then they list a few things, and then they say many of the books that were removed was because they were considered to contain certain material according to the new law, which defines porn using the following criteria. The average person, the quote-unquote average person, would find the material on the whole appeals to I'm not actually sure how to pronounce this word, and I have a fairly decent vocabulary, but Puritan interest in sex, which that word means having or encouraging an excessive interest in sexual matters. The second point is the material is patently offensive in the description or the depiction of nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, sodomistic abuse, or excretion. And the third point, the material on a whole does not have a serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. The first 2 points, I think, make a pretty good case. That's, of course, with that one book. I was not involved with the delegation at the board meeting. I was present at the library, but was not aware of it prior to that. After that, though, I did research on the books myself. I went and got a library card, looked at the books, I've got them, I mean, I checked them out and so forth and listened to things and read things. And I also read through the Criminal Code of Canada for myself as well and looked very extensively at the wording, which I won't elaborate on in detail here because it's sort of outside the scope. But when I looked at these books and then compared those materials to the descriptions in the Criminal Code of Canada, I am very, very convinced, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm very convinced that they are in violation of the Criminal Code of Canada. And I am willing to help in a legal case. If a legal case comes forward, I am certainly willing to help see something through, because I think it's important. And I think I don't think the Lord is pleased with the material in these books or them being available to children. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Hi, I'm Nettie Blatz from Plum Coulee.
Okay.
And I wasn't going to say anything, and this makes me nervous, but I can't help but I have to stand for something that's really, really, really important to me because I have 4 children. And what I hear from my 2 girls, especially for MPC, the sexual stimulated people that are children that are going there, trust me, they do not need more. They don't need younger. They need less. We're taking away their childhood from them. My girls sometimes come home and they're like, we don't know where to leave ourselves. Like anyone you talked about, they talk about masturbation, they talk about this, they talk about that, and it's like, why can't we just be normal kids? We just want to be normal kids. What it does to their brains at their young level, age, it's not healthy. And now when I see it so much younger, you guys are gatekeepers. And I'm sorry, but we as parents and you guys as in charge, we are going to be kept responsible from the Lord one day. And what does he say about those that offend the little ones? What are they good for? So I would not want to stand in judgment on that. So I want you really, really to think about this, how important this is. When you can make a difference, you have that platform, you need to. And I can't stress that enough, just like this gentleman was saying here. I cannot stress it enough. If you let this go, what is next? One little pinky? Okay, that's okay. Next, and it just gets your whole hand, your whole body, before you know it, it's out of control. So that's why the parents and all of us, we're trying to fight here. And you guys, if you can help us, please, the time is now. This is a safe community. We've always known it as a safe community. But from what I'm seeing, it's quickly leaving. And so we have to put some things in place to stop this if we want to continue this life for our children as well. And I'm scared for my grandchildren if this continues to go the direction it is. Like the people were saying, the library is supposed to be a safe place. But if we can't even send them to their library by themselves anymore, I mean, we'll already have to hold their hand everywhere we go and be so incredibly involved in their lives. Like my parents weren't hardly involved in my life. I could run around wherever I wanted. I was safe. But it's not the case anymore. And I'm just please asking you to do what you can before this train runs away where there's no stopping it. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing anybody else looking to comment. I'll ask one more time if any councillors have any questions that they'd like to ask.
I would just like to say, I'm not sure what we're going to do with it, what direction we're going to go, but I have some thoughts, and I hope it's going to go in a direction. I have my own opinions, but I certainly want to wait until we as a group can come up with a plan to move forward from here. And I'm sorry we can't give you a real answer tonight, but I'm certainly hopeful that we can give you guys a good answer in the near future.
Fair comment.
Thank you.
Not saying anything further?
Just thank everyone for coming.
Absolutely. To have that much care and concern for your community, that's fantastic. Thank you, each one of you, for making this a priority tonight in a month when you probably have a lot of stuff going on. So, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for your presentation, David, for the rest of you, for support and otherwise. Very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the media at this point? Sure. On that note then, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Andrew?
Andrew, second, Don Friesen. All in favor?